Very good morning to all of you. Let us have a brief discussion about the blood and blood components. Initially, let us concentrate on a small experiment which indicates the percentages of the formed elements which are generally present in whole blood. In the picture, you can clearly see a test tube. The test tube which containing the whole blood. If a tube of blood is left standing or spun briefly in a centrifuge, the components will separate into layers. Actually, whatever may be the components which are separate into layers mainly depends on density. So you can clearly see, depending on the density, the components are exactly separated into layers. So the bottom of the cells which have a higher density, which generally made up of the blood cells, and the top one which can be considered as the plasma. So here the bottom of the red color layer is specifically made up by the red blood cells. That is what you need to remember. The red blood cells normally occupy about the 45% of the total blood volume. So the 45% is taken as a normal value, but in females it is 37 to 48%, and males, if you see, it is 45 to 52%. So in general consideration, we will say the 45% is totally made up of red blood cells. So above the red blood cells is a buffy coat that you can clearly see. So this narrow white band is composed of white blood cells. This particular white blood cells are also known as leukocytes. And also, not only just the white blood cells, you can also see this particular buffy coat also contains a cell fragments. These cell fragments are generally considered as platelets, which is called as thrombocytes. So here, what is the total percentage of this particular buffy coat? You can clearly see in this particular picture. Approximately the 1% of the blood volume occupied by these particular components is a very important point you need to follow. Now, together the RBCs, WBCs and platelets are referred to as the formed elements of the blood. So generally considered as blood's formed elements. Now above the buffy coat, you can see on the top of the formed elements is the blood plasma. So this straw colored fluid makes up approximately 55% of the total blood volume. By weight, the composition of the plasma is about 91.5% of water and 8.5% of dissolved solutes. So that is what you need to remember. So the whole upper portion is made up of plasma. The total plasma constitute about 55%. In that, the water concentration is much higher, that is 90 to 95%. So in exact value we can say the 91.5%, which is made up of plasma, water, and 8.5% is dissolved solutes. So here most of the dissolved solutes are proteins in nature. So the remaining solutes are the mixture of nutrients, electrolytes, the nitrogenous wastes, the respiratory gases, and other regulatory components. So these are all generally constituted about a very minute quantities which are generally present in this particular plasma. So this is what you learnt about a brief discussion about the formed elements which are generally present on the whole blood when it is taken in the test tube and centrifuge it.